everyone. This is Jeff Cowan from Jeff Cowan's Pro Talk. Thank you for watching and listening to this podcast called Write Service and Write Your Own Paycheck, the path to making $100,000 a year or more when writing service in the automotive industry. And yes, I said $100,000 or more, because as you're listening to this, as you're watching this right now, 20% of the people writing service in the automotive industry right now, in both the United States and Canada, are making $100,000 a year doing so or more, okay, or more. So it's definitely possible. And if you're not doing it, you want to know how, you just keep tuning in right here. Bring all your friends back. Tell them about all the great information you're getting. I will show you and them how to be the best that you can be. So with that, I want to get into today's podcast. No, before I do, I saw a note here. We've been getting a lot of texts, a lot of emails. People want to know how to find us above and beyond these podcasts. Well, it's real easy. You just go to automotiveservicetraining.com, automotiveservicetraining.com, and you'll find out all the information there about me and the company, Jeff Cowan's Pro Talk, that you'd want to know. I've been doing a lot. Let's get into today's podcast, because here recently I've been doing a lot of workshops. It's kind of workshop season for us, and I got quite a few more coming up. And in there's a section where we talk about the common mistakes that we see service advisors make. And the last couple of months, in having done that, I've had several people present the idea of, you should take that and you should put it into some of your podcasts, because a lot of times people will come to one of my workshops and maybe they're on a service drive that has 5 or 6 service advisors, but they're the only advisor. Or maybe we get the manager and they couldn't send their advisors. And so they said, this is good information that everybody should have, so why don't you do it in podcasts? So I'm going to. Now, over the next several weeks, I'm going to introduce you the 20 most common mistakes I see advisors make. And I say over the next several weeks because I really don't know how long it's going to take me to get through all 20 of these. There might be a week that we only talk about one thing. There might be a week, like today, we're going to talk about 4 things. And so we'll just kind of take it as it comes. But I would think sometime over the next 5 to 6 weeks, we'll be able to get through all of these. So with that, let's jump into it. So what are the types of mistakes that service advisors make? Well, number one, especially when we get newer service advisors, they take advice from the uninformed. They take advice from the uninformed. Now, what do I mean? I know that when I first got into sales and I first got into business, I went to people who I'd always trusted in my life for advice. One of those people being, for example, my dad. Now, I always went to him for advice because he always gave me good advice. I mean, when it came to taking care of the lawn, he knew how to do that. Good advice. When it came to being a great husband, he was a great husband, so good advice. What to do with your kids and how to raise kids, good advice. But one day when I was talking to him about my selling career, my business career, as I was doing that and hearing some of his answers, it was hitting me that he really wasn't comfortable giving the answers, and he was kind of struggling to find the right answers, and everything was based on what he thought. But it hit me that he'd never been in sales. You see, my dad was a truck driver and a high school maintenance man his entire career, so he'd never been in sales, he'd never been in business, and so I was taking advice from somebody who'd never done it. And it doesn't mean that my dad's not intelligent. It doesn't mean he was a great guy, because he was. He was both those things. But when it came to giving me advice in those areas, it really wasn't good advice, because he simply had never done it before. And I see this happen all the time. People will come up and they'll ask me something in a workshop, and they'll say, I got a question for you about this. And I'll give them the answer, and they'll say, well, I thought that might be right, but my sister told me, or my wife told me, or my husband told me, or my dad told me, or my friend told me. And my follow-up question always is, oh, so they're a service advisor, a service manager, they work in the service industry too in the auto. Oh, they don't? Okay, so again, they take advice from the uninformed. You don't want to do that. If you're going to ask somebody something about your job or how to get better at it, ask people who've walked the path before. Now, when I say that, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can only get advice from people in the automotive industry, because there's a lot of selling books out there that have nothing to do with the automotive industry, and they will give you good tips. There's a lot of workshops and speakers you can go see who have nothing to do with the automotive industry, and they can give you good tips as well. But if you're going to take tips about your selling career, make sure you're talking to somebody who's at least been a salesperson. 2, another mistake I see service advisors take, and this is kind of related, but it's different, is they do this. Another mistake here. They take advice from the wrong people. All right, now again, this is different. They take advice from the wrong people. And what I mean by that is simply this. So many times I'll see people start on a service drive and they go in and they start listening to everybody. And you never want to be rude to your teammates. You never want to be rude to the people who've done it before you. But why would you go in? Let's say there's 4 advisors on the drive. You've been hired to be the fifth advisor. Why would you take advice from the 4th best service advisor? Why would you take advice from the 3rd best service advisor? You know what I mean? I mean, the only person you really want to take advice from, and I'm not saying be rude to the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th best one, because I'm sure they have some great things to say, but the person you really want to focus your efforts on is the one who's making the most money, the one who's got the highest survey scores, the one who has the highest customer retention. Why? Because they're showing you how they've been able to maximize the situation to that point. Now notice I said to that point, because you might find, let's say for example, you're in a chain where there's multiple locations, and your top advisor at your store may be the top advisor at your store, but if there's people in other locations that are doing better, then here's what I'd recommend you do. I first would emulate to the letter the person that's doing the job the best where you are, and the best is determined by their paycheck, their survey scores, and their retention, okay? And once I emulated what they did and was able to match them, then I might call up people at other locations who are the best, who are doing better, making more, have higher scores and stuff, and start to pick their brain. Maybe take a day off and go over work side by side with them. Okay, so make sure you're getting advice from the right people. So many times I see people, again, go on repeating myself, and they'll take advice from people who just aren't getting the job done. So make sure you're getting advice from the right people. Now I've got time to cover 2 more things here today, and mistakes, and I will here in a second. But before I do, I want to tell you about this book sitting right here. It's called Right Service and Write Your Own Paycheck. It's out, obviously. It's in a hard copy. It's in paperback. Many of you are asking for that. We've got that, and it's available to download on Amazon.com from Kindle. As a matter of fact, you get the books there as well. I've also recorded a 10-hour training program to support this with testing and all kinds of stuff, that if you'd want to invest in that training program, that video training program that's online, you pass the test, we'll coach you, we'll even certify you as a certified service advisor if you want to do that. And on that site, it has all kinds of other training too. It's just not 10 hours. There's actually more to it on that. It's just that 10 hours of it covers strictly this. A lot of you have asked me, written in and asked, when's your next workshops? Well, that's easy. I've got 3 coming up. I've got one in Chicago on March 14th and 15th, one in Houston the 18th and 19th of April, and one in Washington, D.C., May 16th and 17th. These are public ones. They're not the private ones, because I'm doing a bunch of private ones, but these are the public ones. It's a 2-day workshop. In that workshop, I will show you how to maximize your opportunity, how to be the absolute best service advisor you can be. If you want to make the most amount of money on your service drive, get yourself signed up for this workshop. You want to have the highest customer retention above 80-85%, come and see me at this workshop. I'll show you how to get it done. You want to learn how to get perfect survey scores, and yes, I said perfect survey scores, you got to be in this workshop. This workshop's for anybody that works in service. Cashiers, greeters, porters, business development center, especially service advisors, certainly managers, fixed operations directors, general managers, and yes, even dealer principals and business owners should sign up for this. These workshops are great. I teach everyone myself. If you really want to be the best you can be, you want to get signed up for one of those workshops. And how you do that is you go to automotiveservicetraining.com, again, automotiveservicetraining.com, or simply dial 1-800-248-2931, again, 1-800-248-2931, and anybody that picks up that phone can get you registered for that, or you can go to automotiveservicetraining.com and register there as well. Now, I just want to say one thing, though, about coming to these workshops, because a lot of times we'll get advisors call us and say, I wanted to go, but my manager, my business owner, whatever, wouldn't pay for it. Don't let that won't keep you from getting there. If you want to go, you want to pull out your own personal credit card, and you're willing to invest money yourself in your own education, money won't keep us apart. You want to get signed up for that? I'll get you in that workshop. It's a great workshop. Next week, I'm going to give you something more on that. But let's get back to this. So we were talking about mistakes that service advisors make, and we talked about, number 1, they take advice from the uninformed, people who haven't been in sales, who haven't been in business, haven't done the job. Number 2, we talked about how they take advice from the wrong people, meaning they're talking to people who haven't been successful in the job that they're doing and aren't maximizing the opportunity. So now we're going to get back into this and get into number 3, which number 3 is they get the wrong training. Now I got to be careful here, because when you start working wherever you work at your shop, they're probably going to have some type of training program, and you want to follow their training program. And it's important that you follow any internal training program, because they are showing you how to be the most successful you can be in their shop. That's why that training is there. But so many times, once you go through that, or so many times we depend on people to deliver training and they're the wrong people. Now let me give you a list of what I'm talking about. So many people that write service and run service shops depend on product vendors to show them, to train their service advisors. Well, it's easy to do. You know, if I'm selling, you know, a chemical that's going to help you keep engines clean, or I'm selling you windshield wipers, or I'm selling you tires, or whatever, okay, it's easy for me to offer you free training, okay? And I'm not saying you shouldn't take that free training, but the thing you have to understand is many times they present this training as, let me come in and train your service advisors, I'll make them the best you can be, and if you really sit to the class and listen to what they're doing, they're training you, but they're training you how to sell their product. They don't care about the 50,000 other products you have sitting on your shelf. They don't care about all the service. They care mostly about theirs. So most of their training is based on how to get more of their product out, okay? I mean, it's not enough. So, you know, you can't depend just on that. I wouldn't turn it down, but I wouldn't depend just on that. Another source of training that we see is that they depend on, now we're talking mostly to car dealerships here, but they depend on the manufacturers, the car manufacturers, to supply their training. And let me just be real blunt here. You know, people say, well, be careful when you say it, be careful. You know, I would never put that on. Well, I'm going to put it on tape. Most of the factory training out there sucks. And the reason it sucks, S-U-C-K-S, sucks, is because the people that wrote it have never done the job. The people training it have never done the job. They've never spent one day on a service drive writing up one customer. So you're getting training that's created by people who don't know what they're talking about. Okay? Now the manufacturers push this because the dealers have asked for it, but they push it because they make a lot of money off of it. And here's the thing, when your district people come in and put this training on you, it's because they're required to hit a certain quota and get a certain number of people signed up. And just ask yourself, and I'll move on here in a second because I don't want to beat up the factory too much, because if any factory walked in here and wanted to do business with me, because I've done business with some of the manufacturers over the years, and they wanted me to teach, and they allowed me to teach my stuff the way it needs to be done, I would work with them. Okay? But the problem with the factory training is again, if it's so good, and so many of you depend on it, you take it year after year after year, if it's so good, if it's so outstanding, these people are trying to meet these quotas and cram this training down your throat so the manufacturers can make millions of dollars off of it. Why do their sales numbers on a national level suck so bad? Why does every manufacturer have 50% of their dealers way below what would be acceptable survey score numbers in any other business? Be very careful of that training. I'm not saying don't take it, because I know some of you are under a lot of pressure from your manufacturer, almost stop short of being threatened if you don't take it. Take it, but I wouldn't depend on it, because rarely is it good. That's the reason your people don't get excited about it. I mean, again, just look at the numbers. Over the last 10 years, the factory training, the stores that use only factory training, their sales numbers have plummeted from an average of 1.8 hours per repair order down to 1.3 right there. What more do I need to say? Another reason, another training that's bad is free from suppliers of other products. Now, right now, again, and I don't mean to hammer it so much just on the car dealerships, because I know we have more people listening that aren't at car dealerships than are. But the people at the car dealerships, there's a big thing right now where a lot of the finance companies, the F&I divisions, they're getting in to give free training for other departments. Okay, why? Because they're making so much money on the F&I stuff, they can afford to give you training in these other disciplines. And I think that's a nice service. But here's the problem with it: it sucks. They're hiring what's doing is they make it sound like that you're getting thousands and thousands of dollars worth of training for free, but the people that I've seen and have people told me that go in and actually do the training, either they've never done the job or they have no skin in the game. Because if I come in and train you this week and I win or fail, I still get to go next week and the week after that, because they're signing up so much. So be careful of that. If someone's giving you training and that's not if somebody's, for example, in the F&I, and they're giving you service advisor training, come on, it'd be like me going to the guy that cuts my lawn and say, I want you to put windows in the house. You know what I mean? So be careful with that. They're getting the wrong training. And I know this sounds like I'm being self-serving here, but the proof is in the pudding. You know, if you really, I believe on some level at some time when it comes to training, you have to go outside all this free training, this factory crap that's out there, and you need to go to somebody on the outside like myself or one of my many competitors who have people who've actually done the job, stand on service drives, and they have skin in the games. I mean, when I send a trainer out to you, they have to perform, because I won't put them on another service drive if they don't do what we've told the dealer we're going to do. Okay? And then number 4 for today, and then we'll close this out, is I find that service advisors really don't invest much in their own careers, okay, in their own careers. They don't invest enough in themselves. They wait for the dealer to supply the training. They wait for the manager to supply the training. They wait for the industry to supply the training. They wait. And while you're waiting, 20% of the people out there that are making over $100,000 a year are investing in themselves. They're reading sales books. They're reading motivation books. They're reading leadership books. They're listening to podcasts on how to be the best leader, how to be the best salesperson, how to make people happy. They study, and many times they invest their own money in that. I've had, at any given workshop I go to, clearly 15% of the people that are in the workshop got there because they pulled their own credit card out, their own cash out of their pocket, and spent it in themselves, because they understand that to be the best, they have to know more than anybody else. You have to invest in yourself. And here's the thing, I'll just end it this way, you know. In the end, you have to understand what you're doing here when you're writing service it's your livelihood. And I've said it thousands of times. You want to hear me say it 1,000 more times, come to one of my workshops. If you're going to be there all 10 days, I never have a problem writing service, you know, but if you're going to be there 10 hours a day, why not maximize the opportunity? I get asked that question all the time. You know, Jeff, how can I tell if I'm leaving money on the table? Well, that's easy. If you didn't have the biggest paycheck last month and somebody else made more than you left money on the table. Why? Because if somebody else could stand on the same service drive for the same company with the same customers into the same situation and make more, that means that that drive will at least deliver that much. And so how do you get to be as good as them? Well, just like I said here, okay, you don't talk to uninformed people, you don't talk to the wrong people, you don't get the wrong training, you get the right training, and you take responsibility and invest in yourself. The best investment you can make when you're in sales is invest in yourself. You're in business for yourself. Nobody will care as much about your kids, your spouse, your house, your car, your life, your vacations, anything else you want to throw at that than you. And the best way to get to the top is not wait for anybody. I'm not going to wait for a manager to sign me up for a class. I never did. I'm not going to wait for a business owner to decide whether or not I should go to a class. I'm not going to wait for a manufacturer, some product guy to come in. I'm going to take responsibility for myself because I've got goals. I want to live life to the fullest. I want to take full advantage of everything this great country called the United States of America has to offer, and you run with it. And the way you do that is you invest in yourself. My name's Jeff Cowan from Jeff Cowan's Pro Talk. I appreciate you listening today. I want you to come back next week because I'll be back with more of these things that we see service advisors doing wrong. And in the meantime, help a lot of customers get perfect survey scores, get your retention up, and sell a lot of stuff and make a lot of money, because in between now and then, that's what I'm going to do. Take care.